The 15th of January 1945. Place near Houffalize, Belgium, Ardennes. Units: United States 3rd Armored Division with 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion operating M36 tank destroyers armed with the 90mm gun M3, opposing German Panther medium tanks from retreating panzer formations. Higher Command: United States VII Corps under Major General J. Lawton Collins. 3rd Armored Division, commanded by Major General Maurice Rose. Snow hangs in fir branches, and the road is a ribbon of churned ice. Engines idle in low, throaty notes, while ground guides chop their hands through exhaust haze. You hear the clack of track pins, the hiss of breath in wool scarves, and short, sharp calls that cut through the cold. It is mid-January, 1,945 inches. The Ardennes and United States spearheads that slammed the hinge at Houffalize are pivoting north and east. For most of 1,944 German commanders judged United States armor by the 75mm gun M3 on the standard M4 Sherman medium tank, and believed that American guns could not frontally defeat Panther medium tanks or Tiger I heavy tanks, except at very short range. That belief has been treated like weather by United States crews, something to be worked around. A column of M36 tank destroyers from the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion noses off the road into a tree line. The vehicle is new to many crews. Higher silhouette than the M10 tank destroyer, open-topped turret, and the long 90mm gun M3 that looks long enough to spear the next ridgeline. The battalion has been converting trading the 3-inch gun M7 for the larger 90mm gun M3. On engine decks, boxes of ammunition are lashed under canvas armor, piercing shot, armor-piercing capped shot, and a guarded stack of hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core. The brief from division is clipped, and procedural cover the advance of combined arms teams of 3rd Armored Division and attached infantry regiments. Overwatch the road approaches. Expect Panther medium tanks trying to break contact and slice back through the seams. They set in. Through optics, the world becomes black trees and white fields. Ranging stakes, fence lines, and the dark rails of a hedgerow pick out distance. A platoon leader marks sectors, shuffles, shooters, and leaves one destroyer as a roving reserve. Across the radio net, call-outs are logistics and gunnery rather than drama fuel state ammunition-type range cards. The method is not a duel. It is procedure, sight picture, range type of shot fire, adjust fire again. Movement at 1000 meters. A Panther medium tank noses out across a lateral track nose-down turret, already slewing to cover the road. The outline is unmistakable. The near-vertical turret faced the long 7.5 centimeters. Kampfwagen Cannoni, 42 liters. 70 the broad, sloped upper glacis plate that instructors have sketched for months as the central problem of the European theatre of operations. In German headsets, confidence through most of 1,944 sounded like doctrine, trust the front armor. Sherman medium tanks with 75mm guns cannot crack it at ordinary battle ranges. Out here, something has changed. The M36 gunner lays in elevates a fraction and calls his ammunition. The first round is armor-piercing, shot aimed not at the upper glacis plate, but at the lower glacis plate, as the Panther medium tank crests the far ditch, a known vulnerability, when the nose dips and exposes the seam. The shot smashes low and ricochets, biting steel but failing to kill. The gunner breathes checks, wind drift already marked in grease pencil, and calls for hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core. The loader slams the short, heavy round into the breech. It is a tungsten carbide penetrator, carried in a lightweight aluminum alloy sabot body, designed to fly faster, flatter, and punch deeper. The 90mm gun M3 roars. The open turret slaps a shockwave across cold air that tastes of propellant gas. Impact, bright hard spark on the turret face near the gun mantlet. The German driver hauls left, trying to quarter the hull and increase effective armor thickness as training demands. The second hypervelocity armor-piercing round is already seated. The United States gunner holds, lets the motion complete the mistake, and drops the reticle to the lower nose, where the belly is starting to rise. The round crosses the field in a blink. The hit is a brutal, clean strike that drives through plate and internal structure. Smoke pours, then flame, hatches bang. The turret stalls on its race and hangs slightly right. Across the battalion net, there is no cheer, only corrections. Range confirmed at roughly 800 to 900 meters by 2 positions. Ammunition expenditure logged. A second Panther medium tank attempts to back out down the lane. A sister M36 Tank Destroyer has the angle and clips the turret ring with armor-piercing shot, then finishes with hypervelocity armor-piercing shot when the hull freezes. On the flank, a third contact takes a 90 mm penetration through the side at 700 meters while pivoting around a hedgerow. The after-action markers will record what crews feel in their shoulders, the recoil, the shift, the sudden silence after the last report. The assumption of frontal immunity is slipping not in a headline but in range cards and ammunition tallies. Hours later, in a farmhouse kitchen that smells of damp and coal, a company commander spreads a map and draws a pencil box over the next set of fields. Notes are procedural. Keep guns back where the 90 mm gun M3 can work. Cover infantry as they peel houses. Employ hypervelocity armor-piercing shot only when the shot demands it. Reserve armor-piercing shot for side plates and turret faces. The talk, though quiet, has an edge. Line troops have seen the same thing. Panther medium tanks burning at what had been briefed as safe ranges throughout 1,944. The enemy will adapt, they always do. But in the snowy lanes around Houffalize, the picture is different. The United States' heavy firepower now has killing reach where the briefing slides once said it did not. On the German side, retreating company commanders try to understand why tanks believed to be safe across open ground are taking clean penetrations. Reports move up with qualifiers. Lower glacis plate exposed, turret face struck near the mantlet, obliquity unfavorable, but the core is hard to ignore. Somewhere across the field, there are new 90 mm guns and a fast, hard shot that does not arc like the 75 mm gun M3 on Sherman medium tanks. In the next orders group, emphasis will shift, avoid long, flat approaches, fight from defilade, mask the lower glacis plate, keep moving. The script that said, hold the front and trust the front, is cracking under cold light and tungsten. Morning haze clings to the shattered stone like breath on glass. Broken window panes flicker in the light and send knife-edged reflections across the square. The cathedral towers loom above, smoke their ribs and buttresses, casting hard lines through drifting dust. Track marks snake past burned-out civilian cars and crater rims. A United States T26E3 Pershing heavy tank idles at the corner of a street flanked by collapsed facades. The crew checks interphone connections, reseats the range drum for urban distances, and proves traverse. The gun is the same long 90 mm gun M3 that has begun to change conversations along the front. The difference here is the setting masonry canyons, short lanes, and ambush geometry that punishes errors. A report cracks 2 blocks away. A Sherman medium tank at the intersection takes a hit that blossoms into gut-level silence, then orange flame. Radios bark short orders. The Pershing driver inches forward, hugging a wall to keep the lower glacis plate masked. The commander snaps directions to the gunner, searching for a sliver of turret face on the far side of the square. Across the open ground, the German Panther medium tank sits nose out from cover gun, already trained down the approach. Its armor scheme, the one chalked on so many blackboards, promises advantage head-on if ranges are long and angles are clean. But the city has its own arithmetic. The Pershing halts. The commander steadies his binoculars on a windowsill whose stone is still warm from the morning sun. The gunner curls tighter onto the elevation wheel and calls his sight picture. Loader confirms round type seated for the first shot, then raises his hand palm open above the breech block so the commander can see. The signal corps camera clicks and whirs from a doorway behind them. Its lens catching the moment a city intersection becomes a range. First shot. The 90 mm gun M3 recoils, and the muzzle brake spits a sideways slap of dust. The impact flashes against the German turret face near the gun mantlet, too oblique to kill, good enough to shock. The Panther jerks, then corrects the driver, trying to present the strongest angle. The Pershing crew does not narrate it as a duel. They move along a list, traverse a hair right, elevation down a fraction. Second round up and in. The loader shoves the breech, clangs the safety, goes to fire. Second shot. A harder hit that drives into the Panther turret front, biting steel and forcing a pause. Through the periscopes, the Pershing commander watches a shapeshift inside the German cupola. Options are closing in the time it takes his loader to reach for the next shell. The crew keeps the hull aligned and the lower glacis plate in shadow behind the wall. The driver breathes in short bursts to stop himself from creeping the tank forward into a more exposed position. Third shot. The 90mm gun M3 booms again. The round strikes with a heavy spark and smoulder on the front of the turret. Then the quiet city noises return for a heartbeat. Grit sifting a distant door, banging the whine of a generator. The loader already has another shell up. The gunner trims the sight, hunts the line where the turret cheeks meet the mantlet, and asks for one more. The commander answers with a flat word that sounds like procedure more than permission. Fourth shot. The hit punches, then the German tank exhales smoke and flame from the turret ring. The turret slumps slightly on its race and loses angular momentum as if a hand dragged across a spinning wheel. Hatches kick. A crewman emerges, then another. The machine that had commanded approaches all morning is now a signal flare for withdrawal. The Pershing holds position and scans for a second threat, refusing the instinct to surge across open ground. What happens next is not a cheer but a reset. The Pershing commander notes ammunition remaining by type. The gunner marks range by reference to measured building spans on the street plan, the platoon leader distributed before movement. The driver nudges back to cover the infantry squad that is crossing behind them. On the battalion net, a staff voice asks for a brief gun-used number of rounds, approximate range aim points. The answer is clipped 90mm gun M3 multiple armor-piercing strikes to turret face at short urban distance, Panther neutralized intersection opened. Farther along the Rhine's west bank, other units of United States VII Corps and United States First Army are discovering a similar calculus on open ground. In the Rhineland and on the approaches to the Ruhr Pocket M36 tank destroyers, with the 90mm gun M3 pick off German heavy armor as it moves to new positions across exposed fields. Reports mention successful penetrations of lower glacis plates at several hundred meters, when German drivers dip the bow to cross ditches. They also mention turret-face defeats at what crews call common battle distances when aim points are chosen cleanly. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot is husbanded for the narrow windows, armor-piercing shot for solid angles and side plates. The language of procedure keeps replacing fear's older nouns. On the German side, the change is audible in traffic analysis. Company logs laced with confidence in 1944 now carry qualifiers. Do not linger on long axes. Approach intersections from oblique angles. Mask the lower glacis plate. Avoid static front-on duels. The faith in frontal immunity that many German commanders brought into late 1944 is becoming a narrower and more conditional thing. In cities like Cologne and in the hedged fields west of the Rhine, the 90mm gun M3 keeps finding corners of geometry where that faith fails. The Signal Corps camera remains steady for a long moment on the smoking Panther medium tank. In the frame, the cathedral towers do not move. The American tank does not surge forward for a cinematic finish. It waits, holds its lane, and then edges to a new firing position that covers the infantry. The scene looks like a duel, but the soundtrack is checklists, sight picture, range type of shot, fire, adjust, fire again. The realization happening on both sides is not a single revelation. It is a page in a logbook that will be read again the next morning and the morning after that until the river crossings begin. Dawn comes up thin and metallic over the autobahn. Concrete slabs show frost in the joints, like white stitches. Burned trucks drift in and out of the morning mist, as if the road is remembering traffic that is gone. United States half-tracks idle off the shoulder, while a line of M36 tank destroyers reels forward turret tops open to air that smells of wet earth and exhaust. The column halts at a flyover where the map says the ground falls away into fields cut by ditches. The battalion radio net is steady, dry and exact. Range fans. Dead ground. Likely hull-down sights. The 90mm gun M3 is not a story by itself today. It is a tool to be placed at the right angle and the right distance. A scout car edges across the overpass, and drops to a farm track. Its crew waves 2 circles overhead and then points a hand flat and low to the east. Movement. A German column is trying to peel along the far hedgerow to a lateral lane. You can pick out the long gun of a Panther medium tank, the square muzzle brake a dark knot at the end of a line. The destroyer platoon leader talks his section into a wedge, steps one vehicle forward to a shallow rise, and sets the others 50 meters apart in back. He is building a field problem solution in pieces. 1 shooter, 2 covers 1 reserve. The first M36 tank destroyer pulls up until its idler wheel kisses the lip of the rise. The gunner shades his sight with the heel of his hand and reads wind off a line of smoke that a farmhouse chimney writes against the sky. Loader checks his ammunition stack, armor-piercing shot at hand, hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core in the next crate ready to climb. The platoon leader comes up on the radio with a voice like a carpenter counting, range, aim point. Do not show more hull than the gun needs to work. The Panther medium tank clears the hedgerow and shows its lower glacis plate for a second as the nose dips to the ditch. The M36 gunner does not wait for elegance. Armor-piercing shot first into the seam. The 90mm gun M3 throws its weight back into the recoil cylinders. Impact throws a white spark and a guttering smear of smoke at the bottom edge of the German hull. The tank lurches, catches, and heaves itself level. The loader is already muscling the short, heavy hypervelocity armor piercing round toward the breach. He does not speak. He smacks the base of the round with his palm and rides the clang shut. Second shot. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot takes the flat of the plate as the hull climbs, crossing the field like a thrown nail. The hit sounds harder, more final, as if a door slammed in the belly of the tank. Smoke boils. The German driver tries to quarter the hull to stack effective thickness, but the motion costs speed, and the next angle opens the turret face to the second destroyer. That gunner holds his elevation and waits for the moment when the turret cheeks flatten against his sightline. Armor-piercing shot takes the ring. The turret freezes, then slips like a shoulder coming out of a socket. The radio net records it the way Clark's will. Target 1 neutralized. Distance approximately 700 to 800 meters by stadia on 2 positions. Ammunition expenditure logged. The section leader resets the wedge and lets the reserve destroyer creep to a new cut in the hedgerow. Farther along the lane, a second German vehicle shows the shorter, blunter look of a Sturmgeschütz assault gun. It is nose-on, low and dangerous if it can get a shot into the United States overpass. The leader keeps voices flat. Front plate is a slab. Do not waste hypervelocity armor-piercing shot on a bad angle. Take the track or the driver visor with armor-piercing shot and wait for a side. The 90mm gun M3 hammers again. The assault gun jerks, drifts, and then presents a slice of side plate as the driver fights the ditch. That is the moment for the expensive round. The loader yanks the wooden spacer, palms the fat aluminum alloy sabot body with its tungsten carbide core into the breech, and points one finger at the commander. The answer is a single syllable that is half permission, half checklist. Fire. The round takes the side clean, a white-hot bite followed by a snort of black smoke. Flames snap at the commander's cupola. The destroyer holds the sight on the wreck for a count of 2 and then shifts back to the hedgerow, refusing the urge to track the fire. Infantry comes up in a stagger boots, dark with meltwater men, looking too large next to the hipped roofs and low barns. They flow around the destroyers, rifles angled down one squad, crossing behind the wedge to clear the overpass embankment. The tank destroyer platoon leader checks his watch and marks a quick diagram on his map with a carpenter's pencil. He boxes the fields they just fought across and annotates them with the kind of notes that make sense to men who will still be here after lunch. Lower glacis plate exposed on ditch crossing. Side plate available at hedgerow break. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot reserved for critical angles. Armor-piercing shot for turret faces and track cuts. Keep the hull low. Keep the lower glacis plate masked. German radio traffic sours in the background, a static, choked line of orders that keep saying the same things. Do not hold long on an axis. Use defilade. Avoid flat fronts to the enemy. Do not show the lower glacis plate. The words are right, but the road network and the broken fields do not care. Retreat collapses geometry. At the next village, A Panther medium tank tries to nose through a gap between two barns and gets its turret pinned by a telegraph pole. The gun cannot swing. An M36 tank destroyer slides to a stop across the lane at roughly 600 meters, takes one breath, and drops an armor-piercing shot into the turret face. The second round is hypervelocity armor-piercing shot, because the first did not finish it. The tank exhales smoke like a forge and goes still. By afternoon, the Autobahn is a conveyor of small, exact decisions. The 90mm gun M3 does not win anything by itself. Combined arms teams keep it from getting flanked, engineers lift the mines, supply trucks, deliver the heavy rounds, and the radio net keeps the shot types honest. But a pattern is now fixed enough to write down and teach. If the German vehicle dips, the nose hit the lower glacis plate seam. If the turret face is available, and the distance is not long, place armor-piercing, shot at the mantlet edge, or the turret ring, and be ready to finish with hypervelocity armor-piercing shot. If a side opens, spend the expensive round, and move before the next axis sees you. Toward evening, the wind drops, and the cold settles into the concrete lanes. A company of the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion parks in the lee of a long brick barn, engines ticking down barrels propped on travel locks. The commander of the lead platoon writes his ammunition tallies on the back of a ration sleeve because his notebook is soaked. He circles the code for hypervelocity armor-piercing shot and adds the number still on hand, then underlines the field where he will requisition more. The faith in frontal immunity that had carried through most of 1944 is now an argument that nobody bothers to make aloud. In this light on these roads, the 90mm gun M3 keeps finding angles that turn doctrine into scrap. The morning begins with a rattle of track over cobbles and the hollow boom of feet on a pedestrian bridge. A reconnaissance platoon from United States 3rd Armored Division threads through Lipstadt's brick streets, while a section of M36 tank destroyers takes station by the rail embankment. The light is the color of tin. Smoke from a shelled warehouse drifts along the tracks and makes the signal gantry look like a mast in fog. Radios pass the same clipped thought up and down link-up, with United States 2nd Armored Division expected on the far side of town. Hold lanes. Watch for German armor trying to break west before the jaws close. The tank destroyer section leader chooses positions like a carpenter squaring a frame. One M36 tank destroyer takes the long field of fire down a boulevard that runs straight as a rule toward the river bridges. Another tucks half a hull behind a stone loading dock and owns the corner where a side street cuts across. A third waits 20 meters back as reserve. The loader on the corner gun checks his ammunition stack with both hands, lips moving as he touches each metal case armor-piercing shot on top, hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core under canvas, armor-piercing capped shot as the bulk. He chalks a fat arrow on the crate that holds the expensive rounds and sets it close to his knees. German engines pulse somewhere beyond the freight sheds. The sound is a heavy drumming that comes and goes as if a giant is walking behind rows of brick. The first shape to appear is a low assault gun, nosing across a gap gun already searching. The M36 tank destroyer at the loading dock holds fire and lets the assault gun angle up the street until it shows side plate between two jutting walls. Armor-piercing shot first because the angle is clean. The 90mm gun M3 kicks the open turret with a hard, dry shove. The shot takes the side like a hammer on a chisel. Smoke bellies out and then draws back as the German driver stalls the engine. The boulevard gun calls movement at 900 meters dead center in the long sightline. A Panther medium tank slides through the haze with its lower glacis plate masked by the crown of the roadway. That is a better crew. The M36 gunner leans closer to the eyepiece and waits for a mistake he has seen a dozen times this month. The mistake is small. The Panther dips as it crosses a tram cut. The lower glacis plate shows a thin band of flat steel, like the white of an eye. Armor-piercing shot goes first because the loader can feed it faster and because the hit will force either a stop or an angle. The round slaps low, throws scale off the plate, and makes the hull shudder. The driver quarters left to stack slope, and that motion opens the turret face along the mantlet edge to the corner gun. The corner gunner calls his range and asks for the expensive round. The loader palms hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core into the breach and shouts up, "Fire!" The 90mm gun M3 snaps and the sabot round reaches the turret face before the German traverse can finish. The spark is small and hard. The result is not. Smoke fountains from the turret ring and then lifts in a brown sheet. Across town, the link-up patrol from United States 2nd Armored Division pushes in from the west. The first men who see each other are dismounted scouts who lift helmets and grin without ceremony. The radio net is drier. Link-up confirmed. Grids exchanged. Lanes reassigned. The tank destroyer leader walks his section forward by pairs, never showing more hull than the gun needs. Infantry flows the other way, clearing doorways that look too dark in the morning light. This is the closing of a large map box that staff officers will label the Ruhr Pocket. At the embankment, it feels like a set of good angles chosen under time. A second German attempt comes fast, as if a company commander still believes in timing more than in geometry. 2 Panther medium tanks and a platoon of infantry in half-tracks try to dash the long boulevard while smoke still hangs over the sheds. The boulevard gunner has already written his ranges on the inside of the turret with grease pencil. He has the tram cut marked, the freight tower marked, the smashed kiosk marked. Armor-piercing shot into the lead half-track first, because it is soft, because it will block the lane and force the Panthers to steer. The hit turns the vehicle sideways and throws men into the gutter. The first Panther chooses the wrong side of the wreck and climbs the shallow curb which lifts the hull and shows the lower glacis plate over a streetcar rail. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core is worth the cost here. The loader brings it up, the commander gives a single flat syllable, and the shot drills the plate as if the steel were thin wood. On the net there is no triumph, only infantry. Distance approximately 600 to 800 meters on the long gun. Ammunition by type. A request for resupply of hypervelocity armor-piercing shot before nightfall. The section leader changes the wedge again and moves his reserve M36 tank destroyer to a spur that looks into a courtyard where a surviving assault gun might lurk. He leaves armor-piercing capped shot stacked for a possible oblique hit on a turret face if a second Panther tries the corner. German radio traffic grows tight and brittle. Orders insist on defilade. Orders insist on oblique approaches. Orders insist on masking the lower glacis plate. The city does not honor those words when the streets run straight to the bridges. A last German driver floors the throttle and tries to thread 2 burning vehicles. The hull skates on metal and shows too much side. The reserve M36 tank destroyer takes the shot with armor-piercing shot and holds the sight through the smoke until the silhouette does not move. When the shooting falls away to single cracks, the scene is not triumphal, it is maintenance and record. A mechanic checks the recoil cylinders by feel. The loader counts the cases and chalks a number on the crate that sits where his knee bruised it. The platoon sergeant notes the remaining hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core and circles the requisition. A captain from the infantry battalion steps up on the tank destroyer sponson and asks for the lane past the rail sheds to be held for 15 minutes while his riflemen cross. The answer is yes, in a voice that sounds like a checklist, read aloud. The link-up runs like a zipper closing. United States First Army spearheads shake hands with United States Ninth Army spearheads. The pocket is sealed on the map and felt in the street by the way engines begin to idle instead of roar. The old belief in frontal immunity is absent from this conversation. It does not fit in the page margins where men are writing ranges and aim points and ammunition types next to real addresses in a real town. Morning comes as a dull plate over mills and rail spurs. The smoke from cooling furnaces hangs like low cloud and makes the river look made of lead. A column of United States half-tracks edges along a cinder pile, while an M36 tank destroyer section sets up on a spoil bank that overlooks a fan of sidings. The surface under the tracks is slag that crunches like broken glass. The radio net is an accountant's ledger read aloud. 1 lane to the bridge, 1 lane to the switchyard. Reserve gun 10 meters back and 2 meters lower. Keep the lower glacis plate masked. Keep the muzzle above the ridge so dust does not give away the lay. The first contact is not dramatic. A Sturmgeschütz assault gun slides its front plate across a gap between warehouses' nose, hunting for a hull-down cut into the crosstown street. The corner destroyer holds and lets it run until a slice of side plate shows beyond a downspout. Armor-piercing shot first. The 90mm gun M3 heaves and the open turret slams the crew with a flat slap of pressure. The impact is a hard bite into the German side. Smoke huffs out and then sucks back as the driver stalls the engine trying to correct. The destroyer holds the sight picture to count 2 and then shifts to the next alley, because the lesson of the month is simple. Do not hang around the smoke. To the south, a Panther medium tank noses into the switchyard lead, moving with the careful, muscle-slow caution of a crew that has been briefed on angles. The driver quarters the hull the entire time and keeps the lower glacis plate hidden behind the crown of the track ballast. The gunner in the M36 tank destroyer reads the same geometry and does not waste hypervelocity armor-piercing shot. Armor-piercing shot goes to the turret ring where the mantlet edge makes a seam. The hit is not final. It is a shove that interrupts the traverse and forces the German commander to pick between cover and line of fire. He chooses wrong, tries to clear the switch lamp, and lifts the nose over a frog in the rail. The lower glacis plate shows like the white of an eye. The round crosses the short yard like a thrown nail, and the sound of the hit is inside the destroyer's hull as much as outside. Smoke pushes out of the Panther's turret ring and then lifts like a brown sheet. There is no shout on the net, only infantry. Distance by stadia 600 to 700 meters. Armor-piercing shot 1. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot 1. Reserve gun still cold. The section leader resets the wedge and walks the reserve to a cut in the slag heap that opens a narrow field of fire into a loading court. He is tired in the way of a man who has been making the same right choices for 3 weeks. He still makes them again, because that is the work. The infantry comes in like a tide around cinder piles and cable spools. A platoon leader in a netted helmet steps up on the sponson to talk, mouth to ear. He wants the lane to the bridge kept closed while his second squad crosses. The destroyer commander nods and moves his hand across the turret bustle like he is smoothing a tablecloth. The loader shifts the crates so that the stack of hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core is within his knee's reach. He chalks a fat arrow on the crate and underlines the count. He does not say the number out loud. He has already written it in grease pencil on the inside of the turret. German radio traffic flickers through static with the same words that have been in orders since late March. Use defilade. Approach obliquely. Mask the lower glacis plate. Do not fight front on. The city does not care. The yards and streets are a map of obligations, and the retreat keeps forcing long axes. A second Panther medium tank tries to run the lead to the bridge under the cover of a shunting locomotive that has been left hissing on the main. The locomotive gives mask for 6 seconds and then slides beyond the sightline. The Panther is naked in the gap. Armor-piercing shot to the mantlet edge first for the shove. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot to finish when the turret stalls a fraction to recover. The 90mm gun M3 recoils, and the open turret breathes the propellant gas back into the crew's faces. The German hull exhales smoke and then stillness. By noon, the section has written a small doctrine on the back of a ration sleeve. It is the month's doctrine distilled to the yard. If the hull rises, watch the lower glacis plate seam. If the turret face is square at short distance, put armor-piercing shot at the mantlet edge or the turret ring, and be ready to spend hypervelocity armor-piercing shot to finish. If you see a side, do not be cheap. Spend the expensive round fast and move before the other axis finds you. Keep the lower glacis plate masked. Keep the hull low. Never show more vehicle than the 90mm gun M3 needs to work. A company runner arrives with a boxy truck that looks like it should be hauling coal rather than ammunition. He jumps down with a paper that has the requisition numbers circled. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core is coming up the road in a trickle. Armor-piercing shot and armor-piercing capped shot are solid. The loader signs with a pencil he cuts with a pocket knife and drags the new crate into the turret bustle. He marks the count again and underlines it. The mark means the same thing in every crew's turret on this road today. You now have exactly enough to be confident, not enough to be careless. In late afternoon, the wind shifts and the mill smoke flattens along the ground. An assault gun tries one last cut across the cinders to bring its front plate to bear on the spoil bank. The gunner on the reserve destroyer has been waiting for the opening where the front plate stops being a slab and starts being a target. The driver of the German vehicle dips the nose at the lip of a rut. For one beat the roofline, and the driver visor flatten into a crisp chalk-line seam. Armor-piercing shot takes the visor. The assault gun slumps as if a joint gave way. The destroyer does not watch it burn. The gunner is already easing the sight back to the rail fan, because the work is in coverage, not in kills. By evening the bridge is taken by infantry who move like men who have learned how to cross streets that shoot back. The destroyer section kisses the travel locks down and lets the engines idle. The platoon sergeant walks the line and runs his hand along each barrel like a man checking fence rails. He counts the cases on the ground with his boot toe and matches the number to the grease pencil tally inside each turret. The old sentence about frontal immunity does not appear anywhere in the notes. The only words that remain on these pages are ranges, aim points, shot types, and addresses in a real city that can be found again tomorrow. Morning is iron and water. The Lenne River runs dark under low cloud, and the mills along its banks breathe steam that flattens across the surface like gauze. A pair of M36 tank destroyers grind up a cobbled grade past a tram stop whose glass is gone, then nose down toward a bridge that has had its center span dropped. Infantry fans left and right along the rail, one squad hugging the parapet, another slipping through a yard stacked with cable drums. The radio net is steady, the same dry cadence that has carried them from Cologne to here. One gun covers the far bank, one gun covers the road that curls behind the brewery. Reserve stays high and back, keep the lower glacis plate masked. The first German round of the day slaps the bridge abutment with a square, heavy sound and throws chips that whistle over helmets. The shot came from a slit between two brick sheds on the far bank. The corner destroyer does not lunge. The driver eases the hull until only the muzzle and a whisker of mantlet show beyond the stone. The gunner paints the gap with his reticle and waits for a shape that is more than darkness. The assault gun that fired noses forward a handspan too far, hunting for the same angle. Armor-piercing shot first. The 90mm gun M3 bucks the open turret, the muzzle brake lashes dust along the parapet, and the round takes the driver visor. The assault gun slumps like a joint, giving way, and stays there hissing. To the south, a Panther medium tank appears on the river road, with its lower glacis plate masked by the crown. It is playing the lesson correctly, and doing it well. The M36 tank destroyer on the high street does not waste hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core across a bad angle. Armor-piercing shot goes to the turret ring seam near the gun mantlet. The hit is not a kill, it is a shove that interrupts traverse. The Panther tries to quarter the hull into a better line and lifts the nose to bump a tram rail. For a blink, the lower glacis plate shows like the white of an eye. The loader has been riding the crate with the expensive rounds between his knees since dawn. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core is up and home before the commander finishes the flat syllable that means fire. The round crosses the river road like a thrown nail, and the sound of the strike lives inside the turret more than outside. Smoke pushes hard from the turret ring and hangs in a sheet that the wind takes toward the water. There is no cheer on the net, only inventory and boundaries. Distance by stadia 600 to 700 meters from the high street measure. Ammunition by type. One more crate of hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core en route with the company truck. 99th Infantry Division patrols are reported cutting in along the ridge to the north. Hold this lane until they can shake hands across the rail yard. The section leader walks the reserve destroyer down the grade in short engine-braked steps and tucks it into a doorway that opens a slit view along a lane to the station. A shunting locomotive still under steam clanks and hisses in the middle distance and makes the yard sound alive when it is not. An infantry platoon leader in a netted helmet climbs onto the sponson and talks mouth to ear. He wants the bridge approaches held for 15 minutes, while his second squad crosses by a surviving footbridge upstream. The destroyer commander nods. The loader moves the crates again so that the expensive rounds are chalked and reachable without a stretch. He underlines the count with the nub of a grease pencil. He does not say the number. German radio traffic has a different temperature now. Orders still say defilade oblique approaches, mask the lower glacis plate, avoid static front-on fights. Under the orders there is a new sound: voices asking about surrender corridors, voices asking whether bridges are to be blown or left for escape, voices breaking into a hash that the traffic men call nervous. Down by the station, a line of men in field grey steps out from a siding with hands up. Rifles clatter to the cinders in a clumsy rain. The infantry takes them in with the practiced motions of men who have done this all week. The M36 tank destroyers do not move. They keep the long lanes covered because one engine note out of place can still mean a last dash. It comes as if on cue. A single Panther medium tank tries to use the moving locomotive as a mask and brake between two brick sheds toward a ramp that leads up to the ridge road. The locomotive slides past and leaves the tank naked in the gap. The boulevard gun from the high street has the range written in grease pencil inside the turret rim. Armor-piercing shot first to shove and stall. The hit breaks paint off the mantlet edge and arrests traverse. The corner gun uses the stall to place hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core through the turret face. The spark is small and hard. The result is not. Smoke lifts, then a lick of flame curls out as if the tank were breathing wrong. The crew bails, stumbles, and goes to ground. The destroyers do not chase the wreck. They move muzzles 2 degrees and go back to covering the long axes while the infantry clears the sheds. By late morning, the valley is a map of careful advances and sudden quiet. The bridge that was missing a span is now a footbridge, with riflemen moving across in pairs. The station yard has white cloth tied to a signal gantry where a sergeant thought it would be seen. The section leader notes the change on his map in pencil. Surrender traffic increasing, armor threats intermittent. Keep one gun on the long river road, keep one gun on the station lane. Reserve back muzzle above the parapet only when needed. Keep the lower glacis plate masked. In the afternoon, a staff car from division rolls up with an officer who smells of damp wool and pencil shavings. He asks for a quick verbal number of rounds by type, expended ranges, aim points, targets. The answers are the same words repeated since January. 90mm gun M3. Armor-piercing shot to mantlet edges and turret rings at short city distances. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core for lower glacis plate exposures and finishing hits. Side plates taken immediately with the expensive round and the position abandoned before the next axis can reply. The officer nods and writes in a small book. He does not stay. He leaves the men to their lanes. Toward evening, a runner from the neighbouring regiment brings the word that Cologne itself has taken flags under white cloth and that groups are laying down arms in the streets. Engines all along the Lenne idle instead of roar. The M36 tank destroyers do not celebrate. They roll back one block fold onto travel locks and count the cases they have left on the cobbles. The platoon sergeant walks the line and runs his hand across the barrels like a man checking fence rails. The old sentence about frontal immunity does not belong anywhere on this street. The words that matter are still ranges, aim, points, shot types, and the names of places you can point to with a finger on a real map. Dawn finds the mills quiet and the sidings full of cars going nowhere. Over a yard of still coal dust, a clerk in a netted helmet reads out the last tallies, while a platoon sergeant marks them in grease pencil inside each open turret. Armor-piercing shot expended and resupplied by the truck that came up at dark. Armor-piercing capped shot good stock to be carried forward as bulk. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core, enough to be confident, not enough to be careless. The barrels of the 90mm gun M3 are cool enough to hold a palm against. The travel locks are up. The men sit on sponsons with canteen cups that steam. The battalion net is no longer a hunt. It is inventory and boundary lines. United States 1st Army reports surrender points opening on factory squares. United States 9th Army reports columns taking down rifles and stacking them in rows that look like fence rails fallen over. A captain from the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion walks the line and collects quick verbals for the after-action roll-up. He knows division will want before noon. Distances aim points where armor-piercing shot worked and where hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core was needed to finish. He does not ask for stories. He wants addresses and numbers that can be found on a map. Across a small bridge, a German company commander stands in front of a chalkboard that still carries the same words it has carried since January. Use défilade. Approach obliquely. Mask the lower glacis plate. Avoid static front-on fights. He has believed them and taught them. He has also spent the last 2 weeks writing qualifiers around them. Bridge crowns expose the lower glacis plate when drivers climb rails. Tram cuts lift noses and show seams. Turret rings and mantlet edges cannot stay in motion when a 90mm gun M3 keeps shoving with armor-piercing shot and finishing with hypervelocity armor-piercing shot. None of this is dramatic. It is a set of small corrections that came late. On the square at Remscheid, a detail from United States 3rd Armored Division lays out captured documents on a table made from a door set over 2 sawhorses. The papers smell of coal, smoke, and pencil dust. A German memo dated early March warns battalions that new American heavy guns have appeared in quantity and that the old notion of frontal immunity is not to be trusted at what the memo calls common battle distances. Another sheet hand, annotated by a training officer, underlines the sentence that says to avoid long straight lanes and to keep lower glacis plates masked by crowns and culverts. The underlines are heavy enough to cut the paper. A Signal Corps photographer cranks film through a camera that has already seen Cologne and Lippstadt. He pans across rows of Panther medium tanks with road wheels off and engines cold across a Sturmgeschütz assault gun with its driver visor drilled dead center across a stack of ammunition crates where somebody wrote ranges and aim points on the lids in pencil because paper kept getting wet. Farther down the street, an M26 Pershing heavy tank with the 90mm gun M3 sits with its engine idling and a crewman standing on the rear deck counting the rounds left in a crate with his fingertip tapping each base. He says, each number under his breath. He does not look at the camera. The men from the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion finish their count and begin the next predictable list. Recoil cylinders to be checked, bore to be cleaned, breech to be wiped and closed on an oily patch. Turret baskets to be policed of empty cases and propellant bags, radios to be dried and retuned. A runner from regiment arrives with the paper. Every loader wants to see more than any memorandum. The requisition that confirms another trickle of hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core is on the road. The loader underlines the number and drags the crate place clear with his heel, so nobody will stack rations on it by mistake. None of this reads like a duel. It reads like a method that worked and kept being written down. In January, the method was a suspicion on range cards. Near Houffalize, lower glacis plate exposures could be taken at 800 to 900 meters, and turret faces could be shoved and pinned with armor-piercing shot, then finished with hypervelocity armor-piercing shot when motion stalled. In March, the method was a film at Cologne of a T26E3 Pershing heavy tank placing repeated 90mm gun M3 shots into a German turret face at short city distance to open a lane for infantry. In early April, the method was wedges on autobahn cuts and switch yards, with aim points written in grease pencil on the inside of turret rims, tram cuts, freight towers, hedgerow breaks. By today, with surrender flags showing from windows along the Wupper, the method has turned into doctrine with page numbers. The German commander at the chalkboard tidies his notes, even though nobody is coming to his next class. He looks at a line he wrote himself a week ago: do not trust frontal immunity beyond angles and moments that you can draw with a carpenter's pencil on the ground. He knows why it took so long for that sentence to arrive. He also knows what the other side brought to make it true. More 90mm gun M3 tubes in the field, more M36 tank destroyers, and pilot T26E3 Pershing heavy tanks where they mattered, more trucks to carry hypervelocity armor, piercing shot, more radios to say where to aim them, more mechanics to keep them honest. On the American side, the language stays procedural. A battalion S3 asks over the net for a clean, no-drama summary to send up the chain. The reply is, the war in one paragraph, without flourish 90mm. Gun M3, effective at common battle distances when aim points are chosen. Armor-piercing shot, used first for turret rings and mantlet edges. Hypervelocity armor-piercing shot with tungsten core, expended only for lower glacis plate exposures or to finish when motion stops. Side plates taken immediately with the expensive round. Keep lower glacis plates masked. Never show more hull than the gun needs to work. The S3 copies it, word for word, and does not add an adjective. In late afternoon, a sound goes through the valley that men will remember because it is what they wanted to hear since December. It is engines idling for long minutes and then shutting down for the night without starting again. The platoon sergeant runs his palm along each 90mm barrel as if checking fence rails and then returns the travel lock with a practiced shove. He counts the empty cases under each vehicle and matches the totals to the grease pencil numbers in each turret. The chalk notes about frontal immunity are nowhere on these pages. What remains are ranges, aim points, shot types, dates and place names that can be found on a real map tomorrow if anybody asks.